Why is China obsessed with space babies? Babies and a flying ship. Spend any time looking at Chinese propaganda, and you'll find recurring symbols and a wide array of styles. But I'm guessing that you'll always be drawn to space babies. Why was the Chinese Communist Party briefly obsessed with space babies? This story taught me the basic, fascinating history of Chinese propaganda, and it helped me understand the symbols. There's just so much going on here.
The girl is holding a peach.
As well as how it all connects to China's real space program and real kids. Can you describe what it shows?
So the picture on the front of the paper is a bunch of school children excitedly standing around a model rocket.
When it's all over, I think you'll finally understand the little guest of the Moon Palace.
You are hearing the actual signals transmitted by the Earth-circling satellite, one of the great scientific feats of the age.
The 1957 launch of the USSR's Sputnik satellite wasn't just a wake-up call for the United States. It seemed like China had its own Sputnik moment. Do you feel like that's true? I mean, it seems like they really had this reaction to Sputnik, almost in a similar way in which the Americans were kind of shocked and awed by Sputnik existing.
So it's not quite like the American context where it was focused on this race.
I shall propose a program of action, a program that will demand the energetic support of not just the government, but every American, if we are to make it successful.
There was a lot of internal dissent. They were just moving from being, victors in a military revolution to trying to actually govern the country. They use this metaphor of launching a satellite for everything.
That's Gregory Kulacki at the Union of Concerned Scientists. He helped me understand the Chinese space program's trajectory. But first, okay, so why am I here? I actually feel like a kid about to bring home a really good report card, and you're gonna find out why in a second. That's because the sponsor of today's video is 8 Sleep. They have just introduced the Pod 5. I actually want to show it to you. You can see that it's beautiful. It's a really nice texture, and it fits on just right over the mattress. It regulates the temperature separately on each side of the bed throughout the night. So if you like the bed cool, it can start it off cool, then maybe cool it down a little bit around 3 a.m. when you start to wake up and get warm, and then heat it up in the morning so that you have a gentle way to wake up. And all this is done separately from the other side of the bed. It's pretty amazing. And that is where my report card comes in. Last night, I did not plan this, but last night I got my first 100% sleep score. Can I have some confetti? Just an animation. I don't want to clean it up. What that means is that I had really high quality sleep, thanks in part to the regulation of the Pod 5. I had a lot of deep sleep. I had a lot of REM sleep. I was having sweet dreams, maybe about space babies. Everything was going well. And more importantly, I was able to get my day started. So if this is of interest to you, go ahead and head over to that link that I've put in the description or at the QR code. You can get $350 off the Pod 5 Ultra. You can try it out for 30 days. If you don't like it, you can send it back. But I think you are gonna like it, and it's gonna be an investment in improving your sleep. They ship to a lot of countries worldwide. There are more details at the link. So yeah, thank you to them for sponsoring this video. They made this video possible. So thank you to them, and let's go ahead and get back to it.
The leap forward was only the first step toward China's advanced economic progress.
During Chairman Mao's disastrous Great Leap Forward program from 1958 to 1962, Mao advocated non-space age industrialization, like in this propaganda poster showing a visit to a blast furnace.
1/3 of communist China's steel production comes from these mills, about 3 million tons a year. Under the leap forward, they are trying to increase this to 4 million tons.
This policy created incredible famine and suffering for the Chinese people. This chart shows the spike in death rates. Though the Chinese and Soviets were allied in some ways, they were in different leagues and had different ideologies.
After that, the other side, the side that wants to sort of follow more the Soviet model of development, comes back in power. But Mao tries again to sort of seize control from them in the middle 1960s with the great proletarian cultural revolution.
Getting a satellite launch like Sputnik was second, in essence, to holding on tightly to Mao's little red book.
What they decided to do after the great proletarian cultural revolution slows down is, look, I know we wanted to do this more ambitious thing. I'm sorry, all of you satellite designers and engineers in the Chinese Academy of Sciences, but I'm in charge now, and we're just going to get this thing up there to make a political statement. So the whole idea was just to sort of prove to everybody that China can throw something up into space. And so all it was required to do was successfully make it around a few times and make enough noise so that tracking stations around the world could see it.
In 1970, they finally launched a satellite, but its only function was to broadcast the propaganda song, "The East is Red." So I want you to think of this song, a space achievement, but really a propaganda achievement too, when you think of these posters.
After coming to graduate studies program, had a similar experience as you. I was looking at those space babies and feel like they're so strange.
Renee's an artist who has made sculptures that touch on themes from these Chinese posters. And in her scholarship, she studied the history of space babies.
They are related with mythologies and different traditions, traditional stories. And those stories are the one that I grew up with as well. They appear in television shows all the time.
You grew up in China then?
I live in Shandong province, an hour 30 minutes train from Beijing in the north. Television really started to get popularized in the 90s. And that's also when this print matter was kind of substituted.
I expected these propaganda posters to all be in this very Soviet realist style, and you can find some Chinese posters that are kind of in that style, but it seems like these diverge as well and are their own just beautiful thing.
Both the USSR posters and the Chinese posters, people are depicted as real people, but in China, I feel there are, especially for the space baby posters, they are related with mythologies and different traditions.
Before the Chinese Communist Party even took over China, Mao held a forum for discussing the purpose of art and propaganda in statecraft, and that carried through once the revolution occurred. At that point, the propaganda department of the Central Committee took over propaganda. The Cultural Revolution ended this and centralized a lot of power under Mao's wife. This led to propaganda that revered Mao and focused on Soviet realist-style scenes in which Chinese people advanced. When the Cultural Revolution ended, there was a vacuum. That didn't mean that everything changed. These posters for Mao's successor have a realistic style. In part, it was to tie him to Mao. But some things did change. And that is why the space babies are so unique. I'm just trying to untangle what these styles are borrowing from. Is there a woodcut element?
It got inspired from the Chinese traditional art. One is ink painting, and we call it guohua, like national painting. You use ink and white paper, rice paper. But it's not very obvious, I guess. The second is New Year prints. It depicts chubby babies as well, and it's very cheap. You print it out with woodblock and put it up on your front door during New Year time.
Look at this New Year print. It is brightly colored because it's made using woodblock. The color separation means that shading isn't really a thing. This allowed them to produce a lot of prints. I've been doing my own little hodgepodge woodblock throughout this video, in which I have different colors assigned to different labels, and then basically stamp them on to a piece of paper. This allows you to produce a lot of prints relatively cheaply. At the time, these New Year prints were best known as a regional practice. They were prints to celebrate the new year in this region. In the 70s and 80s, though, it became a tool of the Communist Party, with a woodblock style and a lot of chubby babies.
There are usually no shadings, which means there are blocks of color, and there are different types of printmaking. Large national publishing house usually use lithography, use the stone as a base so they can produce thousands and millions of the prints. And for like school propaganda or like the enterprise propaganda, they could do woodblock prints or screen prints that's like produce relatively small number. I have this that I want to show you. It's
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
I guess this is right before Cultural Revolution. It was originally printed on a newspaper, but then they took the image and enlarged it as a poster. But there are two of this type of factories that producing tapestries and silk products that's related to propaganda at the time.
If the previous era had been dominated by Marxism and Mao, this new era had room for ancient mythologies and Chinese symbols. I kind of just want to walk through this and make sure I sort of understand things right, and maybe I could have you kind of look at some posters and help me unpack them. So I was surprised that this one on screen is actually from quite early. This is from 1962.
It's depicting mythology story of Chang'e, the lady on the right, top right.
Could you describe that a bit for me?
Yeah, she's the goddess of the moon. And she flew to the moon because she stole this peel from her husband, who is not an immortal, who's like a normal human being living. So she stole that peel and flew out to the moon. Next to her might be the Jade Rabbit. We have this name for the palace, Guanghan. This story is like a symbol of being immortals and having longevities. Usually during like Mid-Autumn Day in September when Chinese people eat the mooncakes.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I was also interested in the gender aspect.
Yeah.
Because even though like there are always both boys and girls in the spacecraft, but I noticed like it's almost always the boy who is steering the spacecraft.
Okay, well, I mean, we have to talk about this one. This is like the most amazing one. And so in the background here, that palace, is that the same palace that we saw in the first picture?
Yes.
And then the rabbit, this is the second rabbit that we've seen in one. Is there some significance there that we could explain?
I think this rabbit is the same one as the one in the Chang'e story, as the rabbit is a companion. And this one has a panda, which is a symbol for China, I guess.
Kind of sneaking in the back. He's like piloting in the background while this baby takes a break. This one actually dates all the way to 1989.
The old man with this kind of like meat on his forehead is Taoism character who in charge of longevity in the heaven. The girl is holding a peach. The peach is also means longevity. This poster is combining the longevity from Taoism ancient time with this longing of flying to the outer space, and therefore you're extending your life period from the earth.
I want to note a couple of things here. First, I don't want to overrepresent the space babies. You can find Soviet imagery of children in space. You can find American popular imagery of children looking to space. It is maybe best to think of these space babies as one note in a song, but a note that keeps getting played over and over again. And that note reveals a lot about how China had changed. In 2003, China became the third nation to send a person into space. The ends of that mission were a form of myth-making too.
Human spaceflight is a really controversial thing among people who are interested in space exploration even, because most scientists feel we're going to learn a lot more about the universe and about space by putting robotic systems up into space, and they don't have anywhere near the cost or the risks of putting people into space. And human spaceflight is kind of one of those largely political enterprises. And if you look at the decision to put a person in space in China, it was also driven by these largely, political motives.
The space baby and the space man aren't so different. I feel like these two are going to become fast friends. Thank you for being here for this video. Thank you to Renee and Greg for talking to me. Couldn't have made the video without them. Just wouldn't have happened. So hugely indebted to them. If you haven't been here before, every time I put out a video, I publish a newsletter. It lets you know when a new video comes out. And it also gives you an extra article that gets into something that I couldn't get into in the video. It's hosted on Patreon, but it's free to sign up for. This week, I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about Chinese propaganda posters because I read a lot and I left a lot out too. So yeah, wanted to share that with you. Otherwise, thank you for being here and I will see you in the next one.